power of God is for you to be blessed, then to take dominion over the earth and be a blessing to your...
Alexa, play Revival Today Radio.
You are now listening to Revival Today Radio.
Give Jesus a great big hand clap all over the auditorium.
Oh, no.
It comes from China.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening as the numbers kept on climbing. Those funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown, they stayed to cover up and tried to put it down. When diseases get their start, from the swine to the SARS, tried to call it just a slip, but I blame the flat back strip. Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening as the numbers kept on climbing. There was Liu and Liang trying to get the whistle blown. He said, "Here comes the virus," and now he's gone home. They forced the quarantine to contain COVID-19. It was probably too late to stop the spread of Chinese disease. Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, I feel my temperature rising, and I think my chest is tightening. Oh, no.
Say the term again. Kung Fu. It comes from China.
Great job by Stephen Crowder. Welcome to the weekend, everybody. Jonathan Shuttlesworth. On with you to check the news. We have a lot of news to check and a lot of good news to check. But first, you see in the title, the greatest story you've never heard. That is not clickbait. Made my wife cry. Made me tear up a little bit. It is powerful. So I'll play that for you before the end of the broadcast. But first, the worst social distancer of all time. Roll it.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Never got to meet you. 2, 1, 2. How long have you been down? Hi. Thank you. Hi. Okay.
It was a looser time back then.
Pretty Roxy. I love that.
Don't put your hands on me.
How about
That's what I'm teaching you how to do.
thank you very much. You're gorgeous. How are you?
We had a ball.
Thank you. Watch this. Little Aunt.
Hi.
I wish. You like Muhammad? The Betty can't hear us. This is for luck. Nice. I think. And thank you.
Richard Dawson, worst social distancer of all time. It was a simpler time back then. He should be very glad he died before the Me Too movement, or he would have been the Me Too movement. Also, clever way if you're a minister and too many people want to talk to you after you finish preaching. They're all gathered up waiting around the altar. Just start greeting everybody with a kiss. Should thin out the herd. Let's check the news. Next. Alabama is reopening. The last state, the state that resisted the shutdown the hardest, As soon as Trump gave the green light, they were open in the morning. Many businesses immediately, some May 1st. Alabama unlocked. Do we have the article or no? All right, let's read it because I want to hear how they're reopening. By the way, the way it's looking, if you have a Democrat governor, you're staying shut. If you have a Republican governor, you're opening up, almost without exception. Alabama Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth and the Small Business Emergency Task Force on Friday unveiled a plan to reopen businesses in the state, some immediately. Here details about the phased reopening. No, we can't click there. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, very nice-looking lady. It looks like kind of like a Barbara Bush type feel. Took part in a call with the Trump administration on Thursday to discuss efforts to combat COVID-19 and options for reopening the economy in phases. President Donald Trump and his coronavirus task force unveiled new guidelines that call for a phased reopening. We went over that last night, with governors in charge of making the ultimate decision whether to reopen. Ivey's office released this statement to WVTM 13. This afternoon, Ivey participated in the phone meeting with the Trump administration and her fellow... Oh, no. The gassiness is coming back. I take authority over it. I bind it. Specifically focusing on how we will get our economy back up and running again. The governor is grateful to the president for his administration's strong leadership and continued guidance during this unprecedented time. She also appreciates the president supporting Alabama, making decisions that are in the best interest of Alabamians, specifically as it relates to their personal and economic health. She will continue making these decisions while carefully weighing both aspects of the situation, both aspects being the economy and people's health. As the president mentioned, this will be data-driven rather than date-driven. With his guidance, as well as that from our Coronavirus Executive Committee and our state's congressional leaders, Governor Ivey looks forward to getting Alabama back to work and back to normal. She commends Alabamians for their cooperation and asks for their continued patience. Their willingness in the next 2 weeks is key to flattening, if I got to read freaking flattening the curve again, and getting our businesses rolling again. The governor's press secretary, Gina Maiola, said the current stay-at-home order is still in effect. Okay, so they're not open. We will evaluate all the data and recommendations to make a firm timetable for reopening Alabama and getting back to normal. As of 5:45 p.m. Thursday, April 16th, there are 4,400 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Alabama and 82 confirmed deaths. At 10 a.m. on Friday, the Small Business Association and Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth will announce their plan to safely reopen Alabama for business. So it's an old story. So maybe I have a second article on it. So that was from Thursday night, and then I guess this morning they announced how they're opening, which means I wasted a lot of time. Let's go. That's Kofi for morning prayer. Top GOP lawmakers call on Trump to fund WHO contingent on Director General's resignation. This is proof that you have a bunch of Republicans that are a waste of time because they're upset that the WHO got defunded. Let me tell you, can't stand the Republican Party. I just would love to throw that on the table. Next. The lovely Nicole Sapphire, MD. As unemployment approaches 20%, each 1% rise can result in a 3.3 spike in drug overdoses. Every point, once you start hitting 20% unemployment, every point you go past that can result in a 3.3% spike in drug overdoses, a 1% increase in suicides. If unemployment hits 32%, which it would by the end of the month if they don't start reopening, 77,000 Americans may die as a result. Will economic fallout mortality be greater than the virus itself? Excellent job by Dr. Sapphire. Next. 39 elderly Texans successfully complete hydroxychloroquine treatment for COVID-19, doctor says. I pulled the article or no? All right, let's read it. Patients complete a 5-day treatment, and their doctor said none of the patients experienced side effects. Keep going. Dallas. What happened at Galveston County Nursing Home over the last week was one of the first big tests of hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19 patients in Texas. I thought the risk of seeing 15% of that nursing home die was just not acceptable, said Dr. Robin Armstrong, MD. Do you have to put MD if it already said doctor? Maybe you do. 56 residents at the senior facility in Galveston County contracted the novel coronavirus, Dr. Robin Armstrong said. 39 of them gave him permission to treat them with hydroxychloroquine pills. Most of the patients have done well, and and I think this is the worst constructed sentence I've ever read. And and I think that is suggestive that medication is helpful. Holy moly, congratulations on the most unhelpful, useless sentence ever constructed. Let's read that again. And and I think that is suggestive that the medication is helpful. Okay, I'm not reading anymore. Next. Michael Berry. I'm done for the day. Are the candidates you support fixing the problems or just not Democrats? That's an important question to ask yourself. Don't vote for people just because they're a Republican. Obviously, the Democrat Party sold this country down the river a long time ago, but the Republicans are the most useless bunch of people. And remember, 72 Democrats and Republicans flew in on private jets to try to stop Donald Trump from getting elected. So now they all warm up to him because he has the loyalty of people like me and many of you that are watching, and so they want to get in good with us. But they're a slimy, useless bunch. Promising the church they're going to get abortion overturned since the 1970s. If we get a Republican president, Republican House, Republican Congress, and they had all three and they voted to fund abortion. I'm done with that bunch of, what can you say when you're a Christian? If you wonder why your neighbors don't see a difference in the parties, maybe there isn't one. Demand solutions. Amen, brother. Next.
How do I report a non-essential business that's
Okay, check
still
this out.
open and violating the safer at home?
Back to me. This is the mayor of Los Angeles giving you instructions on how to snitch on anybody you know that's operating out of their business without permission. What a shameful video from this schmuck. Roll it.
How do I report a non-essential business that's still open and violating the safer at home order? We can only flatten the curve if everyone does their part. And for non-essential businesses, that means closing up shop for now. 99.9% of them have done it. We've seen so many folks adhere to this. And those who we hear about, 92% of them are compliant just simply with a visit from one of our ambassadors or a phone call. But those that do not act, we will take action against them. Our city's business ambassadors come in, and if a non-essential business is refusing to comply with an order, city workers and volunteers from our crisis response team are joining with LAPD in obtaining voluntary compliance with our directive. We initially issue warnings. If necessary, we share information on recurring non-compliant businesses with law enforcement, and if necessary, take charges against them through our city attorney's office. So you can report those non-essential businesses that are operating illegally at coronavirus.lacity.org/business violation or call 311 and let us know.
So there's the information on how to snitch on a business that's still open, and if you do it, you get a free swastika sticker. Next. Alex Berenson, great guy. I think I don't want to misgender anybody. Amazing, unheard interview with Johan Giesecke, one of the world's top epidemiologists. Does he know how to, I once knew how to pronounce that word, and then somehow this week I forgot. Can somebody help me with the phonetic spelling in the comments? Who says lockdowns are wrong? The Imperial College paper was lousy, and the COVID-19 death rate will wind up similar to a bad flu year, 1 in 1,000. Well worth watching. So here's the second graphic. This is what his findings were. UK policy on lockdown and other European countries are not evidence-based. The correct policy is to protect the old and the frail only. This will eventually lead to herd immunity as a byproduct. The initial UK response before the 180-degree U-turn was better. The Imperial College paper was not very good, and he has never seen an unpublished paper have so much policy impact. Next. No, don't just spell the word epidemic. I need to know the phonetic spelling of it. Oh, okay. Thanks, Kathy White. Epidemiology. Epidemiologist. 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 Got it. Epidemiologist. Thank you, Kathy White. Epidemiologist. Let me just say it like 5 times to get it. Epidemiologist, 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 epidemiologist. Got it. All right, next. Oh, the paper was very much too pessimistic. Any such models are dubious, doubtful, that's like a British word, basis for public policy anyway. The flattening of the curve is due to the most vulnerable dying first as much as the lockdown. The results will eventually be similar for all countries. COVID-19 is a, quote, mild disease and similar to the flu, and it was the novelty of the disease that scared people. The actual fatality rate of COVID-19 is in the region of 0.1%. Back to me. We're going to get to that. We have more information on that, and that's the good news for tonight. I couldn't fit it all in the title. But there's strong evidence now that the fatality rate for COVID-19 that they thought was 4% is actually 0.1%. And I'm going to have more information on that during the show. Next. How deadly is the coronavirus? A new study finds a far lower, well, I had it for you sooner than I thought, a far lower fatality rate than most experts thought, writes Andrew Bogan. This is the Wall Street Journal. I hope you know that when you're watching this, because they might end up taking my account down anyway one of these days, but I'm not just sharing like any Yahoo on Twitter that thinks the death. This is a Wall Street Journal article. A study finds 50 to 85 times as many infections as known cases, meaning they think how many people they thought had it. There's actually 50 times more to 85 times more people that have contracted it, they think, which means the death rate would go through the floor if that's true. Did I have you pull the article? All right, let's read it. New data suggests the coronavirus isn't as deadly as we thought. Los Altos Hills, California. The COVID-19 shutdowns have been based on the premise that the disease would kill more than 2 million Americans, absent drastic actions to slow its spread. The model assumed case fatality rates, the share of infected people who die from the disease, of 1 to 3%. The World Health Organization, the WHO also stands for We Hide Outbreaks, estimated case fatality rate was 3.4%. And then they have recommended videos. So they thought it was 3.4% fatality. Now it might be closer to 0.1%. Next. Liberals do not want this to end. Correct. Next. WHO, we hide outbreaks. Pass it on. Next.
I think the thing that I'm concerned
Okay,
most
back to
about,
me.
and that
Here's the Nazi governor of, are you allowed to call people Nazis? Maybe you're not. I take it back. I would like to keep my account. This lady is not a Nazi. She's full of darkness in her soul. And she's keeping an entire state hostage. How's that? This is Gretchen Whitmer, I think her name is, the governor of Michigan, who is now threatening the citizens that if they don't comply, she's going to extend, because they protested. Her way to combat this is, if you keep doing this, I'm going to extend the lockdown. So she's threatening them. Here it is.
I think the thing that I'm concerned most about, and that I think my fellow governors are as well, is a resurgence. When you see a political rally, that's what it was yesterday.
If she had a wax
rally
figure,
like
it would
that,
look
where
more
people are
lifelike.
wearing masks and they're in close quarters and they are touching one another. You know that's precisely what makes this kind of a disease drag out and expose more people. People came and converged together in Lansing, and then they went out back to their homes across the state of Michigan. The odds are very high that they're spreading COVID-19 along with it. And so it's that kind of irresponsible action that puts us in this situation where we might have to actually think about extending stay-home orders, which is supposedly what they were protesting.
I don't think that strategy is going to work. Next. Jennifer Rubin, who hates Donald Trump for some reason. These nuts are going to get themselves and their families sick or even killed with Trump egging them on. Protesters planned freedom rally in Wisconsin after their governor, another Democrat, extended the lockdown. What did he do? Did I have you pull the article or not? I can't remember how far he I know it's at least till May 15th. I think that's what he did. And people have had enough, man. The deaths don't justify it. And the thing is, they're saying, well, if you come out of the house, it's going to spike. But now that the amount of people that have already been infected is 50 to 85 times is what it was, that's not likely. Furthermore, there's people like I read earlier in the broadcast that say whether you stayed home or not, this thing would have spread. So you look at Florida. Nobody did a worse job other than Richard Dawson at social distancing than Florida did. They had their beaches open almost the whole time. They had their beaches open during spring break with people drinking beer out of each other's, pouring the beer to run through someone's butt crack and drinking it at the bottom. That's not healthy. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I've never claimed to be a doctor, but I don't think that's like hygienic. So it's going to be interesting how people in those states react. Next. This is what the Minnesota, so now in Minnesota, your attorney general is Keith Ellison, who's as like liberal as they get. So that now that they're talking about locking Minnesota down forever, even though they hardly have any cases. And now they're protesting in Minnesota. Roll it.
Make some noise! Make some noise!
This has restored my faith in Americans. Basically, you could tell Americans got scared for 3 weeks. Nobody knew what this virus was. Nobody knew how many people were going to die. People were saying that a ton of people were going to die. You were going to die. And then outside of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Michigan, a couple other hot spots, it never hit. Even in those places, it never hit like they said. So people aren't afraid anymore, and now Americans have turned back into Americans. It's really maybe because when pastors all shut their churches down voluntarily, nobody was challenging any infringements on the Constitution. I thought this isn't America. But now it's America again because people aren't afraid anymore. And the cases aren't spiking. And we need to pray it stays that way. We don't want anybody to die. Why women live longer than men. Roll it. You guys yelling, are you okay? No, he's not okay. Play it again. One more time, because yeah, there you go. My brother-in-law, Steve, is Italian. This is what he does when there's something like that. Next. About 1/3 of a sample of 200 non-patients tested positive for COVID-19 antibody in Chelsea, Mass. Chelsea, Mass, I know where that is. Nearly 1/3 of 200 blood samples taken in Chelsea show exposure. Mass General, researcher says, the results point to a raging epidemic, but may also indicate the city is further along. So you can go back to me. Everywhere they're testing, there's way more people that have had this thing than what they originally thought, which is good news because, number one, we're further along than we thought we were. Way less chance of a spike. And then, what's the other thing? Yeah, then that makes the death rate go way down because it's an assumed death rate. You've not tested everybody. So they thought a certain amount of people had it a certain percentage of people had it, and because way more people have been infected, it means the amount of people that dies is a much smaller percentage, which is great news. Next. Hold on to your hats. Get blown away with the first big seroprevalence report coming out. And the fatality rate just got bottomed out to influenza levels. Next tweet. I think we have the whole thread of Justin Hart. Here's what the seroprevalence report means. The population of Santa Clara County, California, is 1.9 million. Currently, only 1,700 people have been diagnosed with COVID-19, and 66 people have died. That's a crude fatality rate of 3.6%. Back to me. So you see, if you were doing it based on tests, see, like when they compared this to the flu, and I'm not comparing it to the flu, like it's as weak as the flu. I think they're going to find out, and this is just me speaking off the cuff, but I can't see how when it's all said and done, they're not going to find out that there's several strains of this thing. Because some people have got it that are young, and it killed them quickly. Very harsh. And then other people get it and didn't even know they had it. The flu, when they figure the flu's death rate, they do it by how many people they think have been infected and how many people died. They were measuring coronavirus only by the number of people that tested and how many died. So it made for a much higher death rate. That's what he's pointing out. They had it, so if 1,700 people had it in the Stanford area in California, and whatever amount of people died, then it's a very high death rate. But now, next tweet. Usually tests are limited to people who show symptoms, people who are sick. The seroprevalence tests people randomly to test for possible antibodies. The population prevalence of COVID-19 in Santa Clara ranged from 2.49% to 4.16%. That means that the actual population of people who have been infected with COVID-19, estimates represent a range between 48,000 and 81,000 people infected just in Santa Clara County by early April. 50 to 85 times more than the number of confirmed cases. I hope this isn't like getting too in the weeds for you, but you understand way more people have been infected than what they thought, which means the death rate's way lower, and it means people have already had it. So this worry that like it's going to hit all these people, it's already hit them. Next. If the deaths are at 66 and the true infected population is 48,000, then the fatality rate is 0.14%. If the range is at the upper end and 81,000 people were infected, then the fatality rate is not even 0.1%. Obviously, something tragic and awful happened in New York City and the surrounding 7 counties which touch it. They still need our help there, and the CFR-IFR will vary by region, just as it does from country to country. A larger study of MLB employees coming out will be telling. Is there one more? And to truly compare things, we need to understand how influenza is measured. So I already told you this. It was 44 million estimated symptomatic, 22 million went to the doctor, 800,000 to the hospital, 61,000 died. 61,000 out of 44 million is 0.14%. So that's the comparison level. Original thinking was that 15% of COVID-19 cases would end up in the hospital and that 25 to 35% of people never knew they had it. Now the hospitalization rate would be in the H1N1 territory of 2% or so. More conversation over at our Facebook page. Good point to add is this excerpt from the study. It's still early. So it's just some things added to the study to keep into perspective. So really good news in the early testing phases. Right? Next. There are food bank lines miles long across the country, and some of you have the gumption to get all snide about the lockdown protests. People can't eat, you idiots. That's why they're protesting. Do you really not understand that? Talk about privilege. My God, by Matt Walsh. Next. Any small businesses that can't get payroll protection money because money ran out can ethically consider violating guidelines and reopening because bad word Congress. And then underneath, here is your signed permission slip to ignore your state governor, freedom of assembly. So Scott Adams is not a conservative. He still is he still believes a lot of people are going to die. And a lot have died, but I'm saying, like, I should say the high end of the models. Put it back up. And he's saying, you know, the payroll protection plan, they ran out of money. And hardly any businesses have received their payroll protection money. So he's saying because they goofed that up, you don't have to listen to them anymore. There's now starting to be American-style backlash to this crap. And it's about time. Next. Brian Westbury, who's a top investor. Antibody testing in Santa Clara, California found the prevalence of COVID-19 cases was 50 to 85 times more than the number of actual confirmed cases. So this is the big news that's out today. Next. As Canadians face furloughs and unemployment, Justin Trudeau is focused on his crown molding. Real let them eat poutine hours. Elitist with zero perception of self. How unwise can you be when this is going on and everybody's losing their jobs and has no money? Justin Trudeau's lakeside residence undergoing $8.6 million renovation. How dumb can you be? Next. As part of quarantine enforcement, California officials fill skate park with 74,000 pounds of sand so that no one can skateboard. Next. Jacksonville Beach opened up this evening. Florida's opening back up. They opened the beaches. This is not middle of the day. This is like when it's too cold to be at the beach. Look how many people. People are done. You think people are afraid? Look at the beach the first day it opened up. People have had enough. Next. Sheriff indicates he won't enforce stay-at-home order. I took an oath to uphold the constitutional right of our citizens, and I cannot in good faith participate in the destruction of Racine County businesses or interfere in the freedoms granted to all of us by our Constitution. So there's the Racine, Racine, Wisconsin sheriff. He will not enforce what the governor wants about businesses being shut down. The backlash is getting strong. Remember, it's not clickbait. The greatest story you've never heard. I'm saving it for the end. Not to keep you on here, but you got to close out with it. Next. Texas Governor Abbott reopens the Lone Star State. I heard it's not that great of a reopening, though, and I haven't had time to read on it, but maybe we'll have it for you tomorrow. Next. In Orange County, California, and the lockdown is over by declaration of the people who are out and about. People in California, they're not complying. You're not going to be able to keep, I said this like 2 weeks ago, if you remember. If the deaths don't skyrocket, you're not going to be able to keep people in fear. They're over it. Next. At the mechanics. Concern. Customer states, sounds like there's golf balls in my trunk. Cause. In fact, there were golf balls in the trunk. Correction. Removed golf balls from trunk. Next. Demonstrators could be seen holding up signs that read, "Liberate Huntington Beach," "Open California Now," "Let Us Work," "Pandemics do not cancel our constitutional rights," and "COVID-19 is a lie." Next. We're here in defiance of Gavin Newsom and his socialist agenda to ruin our economy. One of dozens anti-stay-at-home protesters in Huntington Beach said today. We're definitely not practicing social distancing, which is all right in my book. Roll it. So even in the People's Republic of California, the people aren't putting up with it. Next. Someone flew with live crabs, and they got loose in baggage claim. It's a lot of crabs. Imagine what the crabs are thinking. What the heck kind of beach is this? I'd be out of there. They look too much like spiders. I have nothing to add. Next. Mike Sonko, governor of the Kenyan capital city, Nairobi, confirmed that his COVID-19 care packages include a few small bottles of Hennessy. The governor justified the inclusion of alcohol as throat sanitizer. Mike Sonko, now known as the coolest governor who ever lived. Next. So New York Governor Cuomo is keeping New York locked down until May 15th on advice from McKinsey's consultants. McKinsey was also paid to consult on Cuomo's original COVID-19 projections. Look how much they missed these projections by. Worst case. So these are how many ICU beds they thought they would need. Worst case, they would need 40,000 by April 7th. That's why they brought the hospital ship around and all that. Best case, 40,000 ICU beds needed by April 14th. April 15th, 5,071 beds. You only missed it by 80%. And those people that made those projections are still the ones in charge of the policies being made. It's ridiculous. Next. How many Nate Silver, statistician. How many COVID-19 cases result in hospitalizations? This guy's not a conservative, by the way. In states that have tracked cumulative hospitalizations, there's a wider range, but an average of 17% of known cases have resulted in hospitalization so far. However, many cases are unknown. Is there another one? The consensus has seemed to be that around 1 in 10 infections are detected in the U.S., in which case the true hospitalization rate would be about 1.7%. So not the death rate. The amount of people that need to go to the hospital is at 1.7%, and then they say about half of those die, worst case scenario, which would be what? 0.85? And that's worst case. That's like in New York, and the other numbers we read said the death rate's like 0.14. They're starting to get it now. And again, something different. They're going to find that there's different strains of this thing, because obviously the thing that's in New York is not what's in the rest of the country. Next. COVID-19 isn't the flu, but for people who are under 45, COVID hospitalizations are 1% and kills 0.014. All ages, flu hospitalizes 1.5% and kills 0.13. Restricting COVID to under 45s results in 6 times flu hospitalizations and the same amount of flu deaths, and gets us to herd immunity. Shelter the old, but release the young. And that's the statistical interpretation. Next. This is a plane that had to make an emergency landing on a highway in Canada. Check this. I mean, it's not like they sealed the road off and stuff. Just landed in traffic. Guy should have just drove home. Next. CARES Act pays hospitals to report COVID patients, even those presumed. Why? Now you see why there's such inflated numbers. You get extra money for every case you report, even if you don't have a positive test and you just presume they have it. Wicked. Next.
We gotta, it's just, but you gotta, I mean,
bring it back to me real quick and we'll play it from the beginning. Joe Biden has been bad for a long time. He's getting exponentially worse by the week. I'm not saying that to be funny. He forgets totally what he's talking about mid-sentence here and can never recover. I mean, he's gone. Roll it.
We gotta, it's just, but you gotta, I mean, we gotta reassure, look, here, my message to everybody I talk to.
That's who's running against Trump. His family must hate him. How do you not pull your dad or husband or whoever and get him rest? My dad's brain's already malfunctioning. Let me sign him up for the most stressful job in world history. That should help him. Next.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than he called it the World War II. He had the War Production Board.
Now we're going to play it just watching the two hosts' faces while he's talking.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War.
No, I have another video that's just their two
Roosevelt
faces.
Came up with a thing that was totally different than the.
No, they don't have to crop it. I sent them a video that's just the two faces.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than
the guy on the right looks pained.
He called it the World War II. He had the War Production Board.
When we're going to play it again, you can just watch, like you can read the guy's mind with the blue suit on. That's like, this is our hope to beat Trump. We're going to have 4 more years of Trump. Watch his eyes, and it's like it dawns on him. There's no way this guy's winning. Go ahead.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's
starting
during
to dawn
World
on him.
War II, where Roosevelt
Really
came up with a
dawning on
thing
him.
That was
4 more
totally
years
different
of
than
Trump. There it is.
He called it the World War II. He had
He's
the
like
War Production Board.
Anderson Cooper kept a pretty good straight face.
Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than he called it the World War II. He had the War Production Board. Kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than kinds of things that have to be done. There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that
The despair in the
was
eyes.
totally different.
It's like doing grief counseling.
Than he called it the World War II. He had the War Production Board.
All right, next. Okay, pause, bring it back to me real quick. Listen, look at this little guy. Head disease infection specialist telling us to wear masks and gloves. He's going to rub Mike Pence's arm, come back to the podium, and wipe his nose with his sleeve like he's 4 years old. Roll it. And wipe it.
There's also a phase 4.
Right on TV.
After a vaccine.
This guy. Roll it again. This is the guy shutting our whole country down. Must be nice to be able to buy your suits in the junior section of JCPenney's.
I assume that there's also a phase 4, which is after a vaccine.
Ugh. Shame on you. Giving us hand washing instructions. The Noive. Go ahead. Y'all have seen my rants against the Murray COVID-19 model. It predicts overwhelmed hospitals in the next 2 weeks. Now we have actual stats on our hospitals, and the models have massively overstated the impact. Are we wrecking the economy for no good reason? Here we go. The blue line is actual. Red line is projection. Is there more? Here's another data graphic. COVID-19 hospitalizations by state. Now, all states don't report the same. So if it's red, it's the estimate. If it's blue, it's how many people have been hospitalized since this started. And if it's black, it's how many people are in the hospital right now from COVID-19. So just look at the numbers. New York, out of control. Pennsylvania's in the thousands, current, but, you know, number one, we share a border with New York and New Jersey. Number two, there's 20 million people in the state. That's why I was always doing the deaths per 1 million, cases per 1 million. New Jersey, very bad. Massachusetts, pretty bad. But then you start looking at the rest of the country and you see why people are protesting. Total cases in Florida, 3,060 from the beginning till now. That's a massive population state. Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Miami. Tallahassee, Pensacola, big state. Only 1,400 people in the hospital in all of Texas. There's another 26 million people, whatever. 580 in Arizona, 87 in New Mexico, 45 in South Dakota, total since the thing started, 13 in North Dakota. You can see why people are 81 in Arkansas. Of course, in Arkansas, to count past 10, they had to take their shoes off. But still, it's a low number. 43 in Wyoming, 72 in New Hampshire, 64 in Vermont. See, the country is not New York and LA, you know. 32 in all of Alaska, 44 in Hawaii. Yeah, Michigan's correct that there's 3,000. What, you think there's more? That's just current. It's a black number, so total people in the hospital. What's the source? COVIDtracking.com and COVID19healthdata.org. Next. IHME model used by Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, the Scarf Queen, shows that Texas will only use 14% of available hospital beds at its projected peak on April 26th. Currently only using 6% of available hospital beds, which is very good. We're glad it was wrong. April 13th, look at that. Blue is available hospital beds. Orange is currently in the hospital. And then projected peak, 28,633 beds, 3,881 in use in the entire state. So there will be no overwhelming of the hospital system. And now, bring it back to me. Oh, you already are. I was looking at Facebook. Sorry. You stuck it out with me till this late. If you would share the broadcast, wherever you can share it, I'll give you about 30 seconds. And then we're going to play the greatest story that you've never heard. made my wife cry, made me tear up a little bit. This is powerful. Thanks, Glynis. Thanks, Kelly. All right, and now please enjoy the greatest story you've never heard.
There was a great revival in the Hebrides in the early 1900s. Began to moved up to the pleading for it into the 40s. Maybe we could say it topped out in the early 50s. Two old women, one was 84 years old and one was 82 years old. One was blind and one was humped over so badly with spinal stenosis, just arched over. But they had passion for revival. They wanted God to work. This is what happened. They couldn't even get out to the church to pray. They couldn't even get out to the church to worship. Their house became a place to meet. People came in. They got so passionate about revival coming to their Isle, the Isle of Lewis. They got so passionate about it. They confronted the preacher and wanted to know if he was thoroughly right with God. And they prayed and prayed and prayed. And they'd seen the Lord, they said, with the church filled up and God blessing, a great overflow. And the fire of God struck that tiny little obscure place off the coast of Scotland. And when it happened, there was a young teenage boy that got saved in it. His name was Donald. And the preacher became so dependent upon Donald and so close to Donald, he would ask him to lead in public prayers and help him with the meetings, and he did. Oh, how God worked. People began to hear about it, and the revival fire spread. It spread. And God blessed in a great way. Those two old women, the people, kind of people don't want in their church anymore. And from that same island, there was a young girl who was a cousin to Donald Smith, who immigrated to America. Her name was Marianne Smith McLeod. She came to America in 1936. She met a man named Fred, and they were married. They fell in love. They were married. God blessed in a great way. And those old women were her aunts. And they came out of that fiery revival. That fiery revival. They really experienced revival. And they sent a Bible, a copy of the Word of God that had been used in a special way in that revival, to Marianne. She started having children. I think it was 1937 she had her first child. They named him after his father, Fred. Then she had her second child, named after herself, Marianne. Then she had her third child, Elizabeth. Then she had her fourth child, and she was so impacted by this teenage boy God had used in that revival of the Hebrides. She named him Donald. And she gave him that Bible, the Hebrides Revival Bible. He was born in 1946. He's now the 45th President of the United States. And that revival Bible is in the Oval Office. I'm saying to you, I don't know how, why, I don't know how it all comes together. But I believe God is putting some things together to give us just a window. If he could find some open people who know what the window's for. Can this be the time the window's open providentially, God has prepared the moment, and we will become the people of prayer, pleading with God. This is a plea. Will thou not revive us again? Will you be a part of that? Will you?
What'd you think of that? Let's pray. Let's pray for America. You want to pray for America first?
Yeah, I already prayed in the past.
Okay. Father, thank you for your good hand that's been on this nation and seen this nation through extremely difficult times in the past. And we thank you for seeing us through this one. And we thank you, as Dr. Sexton said, for one more hour of daylight, one more window of time to bring in the greatest harvest of souls that has ever been brought in. Your word declares that the husbandman has long patience for the precious fruit of the earth. Empower us to deliver it to you. Let great multitudes come in to hear the gospel in the very near future. Thank you for driving this plague out of the land. Thank you for everybody who's watching and hearing me. Thank you for your good hand that's on their life and their family. Thank you for protecting them. Thank you for providing for them. Thank you for healing them. Thank you that you're a miracle working God. Bless this nation. Have mercy on our nation one more time, Father. In Jesus' name. Everybody said amen. Pretty powerful story. My wife was listening to it next to me on the couch. And man, when it took that turn at the end, it shocked me. God's not finished with America yet. As dark as things started out, things aren't going to finish dark. The latter end of this year will be glorious. This darkness is already lifting. And it's only middle of the month. I'm believing for rapid progress the rest of this month. And that by May 1st, we'll be able to do what God's called us to do. In Jesus' name. On this Friday night, I'm going to give you an opportunity before we call it a night to sow seed into the work of the Lord. I'm going to play a couple clips of us preaching during this pandemic, getting people right with God during the pandemic. Of course, we've done plenty online, but we've also preached live. And we're still feeding 1,000 kids a day. I think right now they're feeding kids in Chad, Africa, and Central Africa. Everyone who gives today, I'm going to send you, this is a great gift. Whether you like it or not, you should like it. It's called the Minister's Topical Bible. Let me put it back, it'll go in focus. There it is. Minister's Topical Bible. This man on the cover, Dr. Mike Murdoch's father, Pastor Murdoch, pastored for 70 years and broke down everything that he faced in life into 105 categories. His son wrote, I dedicate this Minister's Topical Bible to my own father, Dr. J.E. Murdoch, under whose mentorship I received a passion for obedience and being led by the Spirit. Daddy, you left me the greatest legacy a father can leave a son, memories of your insatiable pursuit for the presence of God. Our family altars, prayer times every morning and every night with us. 7 children are forever engraved in my mind and my heart. You are a treasure to me. I have never heard you curse, never seen a cigarette between your lips, never seen a liquor bottle in your hand, never heard you lie. I'm grateful for you for making holy living your goal. From a very thankful son, Mike. And they compiled this together. Basically everything you'll ever face in life, broken into 105 categories and scriptures to encourage you when you're going through those times. What do you do when your spouse seems unsupportive? What do you do when your spouse feels unappreciated? What do you do when you face marital conflict? What do you do when your children become rebellious? What do you do when your children seem indifferent to your own ministry? What do you do when your children resent the time that you spend with others? What do you do when your salary seems inadequate? What do you do when you face an unexpected financial emergency? What do you do when others resent your success? What do you do when you undertake a new building program? 105 things that you face in life broken into categories. And I'll send that as a thank you for helping Adalis and I feed 1,000 kids tomorrow morning and preach the gospel. So I want to challenge you to maybe do the biggest thing you've ever done for the gospel of Jesus Christ and do it in faith that what you make happen for others, God will make happen for you. That when you open your hand to God's kingdom, God opens his hand back to you, and that's a fact. That's not clever speech. Anybody on here that's given before can testify to it. What you make happen for others, especially bringing Jesus to people who have never heard about him or what he did, God makes happen for you what you could never do in a lifetime. All you have to do is ask God what represents your best and sow it. #donate on Facebook. You can use, if you're in America, you can use Cash App, $RTGive. And if all that's too complicated, you can always go to revivaltoday.com and click Give Now. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kelly. And I'll say for the first 10 people that give tonight, we'll send this to everybody, and then we'll also, the first 10 that give, we'll send you the Dr. Rodney Howard Brown Arrest commemorative t-shirt. Thank you, Robert in Houston. I love you, Brian. Thank you. You arrested my friend. We're never going to let the world forget that you crossed a line when you locked up our friend. It's true, Lisa. I've heard that testimony from so many people. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Kim. And thanks for helping us start 2 churches in Hawaii that are still there. Thank you, Melanie. If you give in Cash App or you give any way that doesn't collect your information, that's right, the production crew's a step ahead of me. Go to revivaltoday.com and click the claim your offer. So that, because if you give on Cash App, we don't have any way to get your name and address, so then we can't send you a thank you. Amen, Rose. Thank you, Missy. Thanks, same to you, Melanie. Thanks for helping us start. Pretty good to know all those times you went on that mission trip that there's lasting fruit there. Thank you, Allison. Proud of you. You've made a great progress the last 2 years. Thanks, Juan. Jeff wrote, my wife and I have donated over $300 the past few weeks, and someone just blessed us with $2,500. I believe it. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Camille. People write such nice stuff. Thank you, Amanda. I'll give you one more minute, and then I'll leave you alone. You have to put in donate, Pam, but your heart's in the right place. It's #donate, Kristen, but your heart is in the right place. Who's watching from Hana? Kiai Park? You related to, why can't I think of the name? The lady that works at the beach for the Hotel Hana. Come on, man. It's because it's late. I can see her. Are you related to the... I'm going to mess it up. Leala. I'm missing a syllable. Let me know if you're in that family. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Kristen. Scroll up. I missed somebody. Thank you, Angie. God bless you. Thanks, Michelle. We try. All right. I'm going to play that Trump story again because it's worth watching. Where's the Red Bulls? In this mason jar. Yes. Lena Allah. That's who I was going for. She's a great lady. I don't know if you know her or not. I think her last name's Park, if I remember right. Can't believe I forgot how to say her name. Ticks me off. Are you allowed? Let me know something before you go. Are you allowed to go? Like if I was in Hana right now, can I go to Hamoa Beach or not? What does my t-shirt say? Gino's cheesesteak. Gino's Steaks, the best. Well, anybody from Philadelphia is going to say it's like a tourist trap, but I think they do a great job. They were off for like 2 years, and they're like good now. Plus, they're open 24 hours. Plus, they're open during the pandemic. Kiai, if you're still on. Oh, I see. So you can go on the beach as long as you have to be in the water. You can't like just chill on the sand. You're welcome, everybody. I'm glad you enjoy these. We'll be back on tomorrow night. Have yourself a great weekend. For myself, everyone here at Revival today. Maybe we'll do late night, good night tomorrow. Thanks, Lewis. Appreciate it.
There was a great revival in the Hebrides in the early 1900s. Began to moved up to the pleading for it into the 40s. Maybe we could say it topped out in the early 50s. 2 old women, one was 84 years old and one was 82 years old. One was blind and one was humped over so badly with spinal stenosis, just arched over. But they had passion for revival. They wanted God to work. This is what happened. They couldn't even get out to the church to pray. They couldn't even get out to the church to worship. Their house became a place to meet. People came in. They got so passionate about revival coming to their Isle, the Isle of Lewis. They got so passionate about it. They confronted the preacher and wanted to know if he was thoroughly right with God. And they prayed and prayed and prayed. And they'd seen the Lord, they said, with the church filled up and God blessing, a great overflow. And the fire of God struck that tiny little obscure place off the coast of Scotland. And when it happened, there was a young teenage boy that got saved in it. His name was Donald. And the preacher became so dependent upon Donald and so close to Donald, he would ask him to lead in public prayers and help him with the meetings, and he did. Oh, how God worked. People began to hear about it, and the revival fire spread. It spread. God blessed in a great way. Those two old women, the people, kind of people don't want in their church anymore. And from that same island, there was a young girl who was a cousin to Donald Smith, who immigrated to America. Her name was Marianne Smith McLeod. She came to America in 1936. She met a man named Fred, and they were married. They fell in love. They were married. God blessed in a great way. And those old women were her aunts. And they came out of that fiery revival. They really experienced revival. And they sent a Bible, a copy of the Word of God that had been used in a special way in that revival, to Marianne. She started having children. I think it was 1937 she had her first child. They named him after his father, Fred. Then she had her second child, named after herself, Marianne. Then she had her third child, Elizabeth. Then she had her fourth child, and she was so impacted by this teenage boy God had used in that revival of the Hebrides. She named him Donald. And she gave him that Bible, the Hebrides Revival Bible. He was born in 1946. He's now the 45th President of the United States. And that Revival Bible is in the Oval Office. I'm saying to you, I don't know how, why, I don't know how it all comes together. But I believe God is putting some things together to give us just a window. If he could find some open people who know what the window's for. Can this be the time the window's open? Providentially, God has prepared the moment, and we will become the people of prayer, pleading with God. This is a plea. Will thou not revive us again? Will you be a part of that? Will you?
The power of God is for you to be blessed, then to take dominion over the earth and be a blessing to your...
Alexa, play Revival Today Radio.
You are now listening to Revival Today Radio.
Give Jesus a great big hand clap all over the auditorium.